All right. Well, got a few people and they can join as we're going. So first of all, welcome everybody to our Nashville Facebook Live. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Walter, for joining us. Walter has done Nashville. What is it? How many times have you done Nashville now, Walter?
I think this will be the 6th time.
Yeah, so it makes more sense to have the expert on with us to answer any questions and let us know what to expect on the Nashville tour. So with that, we'll get started. First, we're going to talk a little bit about Walter. Walter arrived in PEI. It's not working. There we go. That's a little bit better. So Walter arrived in PEI in 2006 from Toronto. Worked for Air Canada for 20 years and retired early as the director of in-flight service. At any time, Walter, if I got this wrong, you let me know.
Keep going.
All right. Upon arrival, he spent time as the general manager for a few hotels and has enjoyed a part-time position as a step-on guide with Target Tours, and I'm sure other companies as well.
Yeah.
In 2016, he joined Target Tours as a step-on guide and professional tour director, and has escorted several tours, including Nashville, Niagara Falls, and Quebec. And Walter and his wife, Pam, live in 10 Mile House in a wonderful home bordering on the Confederation Trail, where they enjoy many wonderful walks and grow a large variety of vegetables in their garden.
Perfect.
Anything else you want to add to that?
No, that's pretty well captured there. Excellent. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. So we've got a couple of different departures for Nashville. So we've got Lancaster, Nashville, and Memphis. We got the Country Classics Tour, which is May 9th to 20th. And then we've got the Country Christmas Tour, which is November 17th to November 30th. Out of the two, Walter, which would be your highlight?
Well, they're different because the nice thing about the spring tour is it's spring weather. It's starting to warm up down there, so it's a very comfortable tour in terms of the temperature and the destinations that we're going to see. Whereas the one in the fall gears more towards very much the Christmas atmosphere, especially in the United States. You know, Christmas is a big deal. So wherever we go, whether it's Lancaster or whether it's the Dolly Parton Stampede or Nashville, Christmas is a big one. And, you know, the fall one also very much turns into a kind of a Christmas shopping tour as well. I mean, both tours have outlet shopping destinations, but, you know, there's a lot of Christmas shopping that I typically see on the fall tour where our guests, you know, take advantage of outlet malls and do a lot of Christmas shopping. So both of them are great. They're different. The destinations are very similar, but the atmosphere in the spring is a little different from the fall. So as long as people understand that, they're both terrific tours.
Awesome. Okay. So life on the bus. There's a few days on these tours that you're just kind of on the bus for a bit of a driving day.
Yeah.
What's that like?
Well, what I have found is that when I first started off, for the longer days, you know, we did show full feature movies, etc. And of course, on the coach, it's not like on an airplane. I mean, there is screens from the ceiling that everyone watches the same movie, and the sound comes in over the sound system. But over time, what I have found is that on the longer days, people bring with them their own gadgets. They have downloaded their own movies. They are reading on e-readers. There are people on vacation that just want to relax and look out the window and take pictures. So I try to be very careful and be respectful of the quiet time as well. And there's, you know, interesting and fun games that we can play. It's on a voluntary basis. And quite frankly, even sometimes the people that say to me, oh, I'm not into bingo, by the time I hand out the bingo cards, they can hardly wait to get their hands on a few. So the atmosphere is fun and people really enjoy the games that we play. But I'm also very respectful of the quiet time, because if you're on the coach from 9 in the morning until 4 or 5 in the afternoon, there comes a time, especially after lunch, where it gets a little quiet on the coach. So I respect their privacy and the quiet time as well.
Awesome. Awesome. And we stop, what, every 2 hours?
Yeah, we make a point of having sufficient washroom stops we're working our way down along some of the interstate highways in the States with lots of service centers. Once in a while, we get off the highways, and I make a point of maybe going to a smaller town where there might be a restaurant that is perfectly capable of looking after a motor coach. So it's not always the predictable service stations along the highway, but I'm trying to kind of jazz it up a little bit with some local flavor as well.
Awesome. Love to taste the local flavors, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, first stop. Well, not the first stop, but the first attraction, we'll say.
Yeah.
Birthplace of Country Music Museum. So this one's based in Bristol, Tennessee, and Bristol, Virginia's role in the birth and development of country music. So is this one's bordering on Virginia and Tennessee, isn't it?
It's actually, the border goes right through the center of town.
Yeah.
The Bristol Museum is really a good first stop because, you know, a lot of people on these tours are very interested in country and bluegrass music, etc. Not all of them, but many are. And to have the first stop in Bristol is kind of an appropriate stop because it starts off with the history of country music as compared to the Country Music Hall of Fame in Nashville, which is kind of after the fact because the big stars have now been created.
Yeah.
Bristol is very much the beginning of country music. Very interesting. We normally, start off with a bit of an intro. We have a bit of a video presentation of some of the older clips. We have a guided tour. The guides will take us all around. There is all kinds of interesting information about the start and the birth of country music. We finish off in the lobby. Guess what? There is a beautiful gift shop in the lobby where people can acquire some interesting CDs and DVDs of country music that you probably wouldn't find anywhere else. So it's a very nice, relaxed way of checking in. And the nice thing is from Bristol towards Pigeon Forge is not a very long drive. So it's a very relaxed day.
Awesome. And then this is probably one of the biggest attractions that I would say the Nashville tour gets, the Dolly Parton Stampede.
Yes.
So have you done the spring one as opposed to the Christmas one?
Yes, I've done both. They are, of course, the fall one has very much of a Christmas theme, and the music is more Christmassy, if I can call it that.
Yeah.
There are quite Dolly Parton songs that are incorporated. It's a spectacular show. And it's theater style seating, a bit like Las Vegas. So we're all around the large arena. There's all kinds of interesting activities that take place. Phenomenal lighting. It's a spectacular show, and the whole menu, the dinner, is it's a 4-course dinner. And one of the things that I remind our guests of the first couple of days is that when we get to the Dolly Parton Stampede, they serve the meal, but with no cutlery. So the idea is it's very much kind of a barbecue type setup. Okay. And I recommend people help themselves to some complimentary cutlery from the hotels the 2 previous days to make sure that if they feel more comfortable using plastic cutlery than their hands. But that's the whole idea. It's very down to earth.
Yeah.
It's, it's a beautiful half chicken, baked potato. It's a phenomenal meal, very professional service. And we eat as we watch the show. The nice thing also is we have the ability after the show to actually visit with the horses that have been used in the actual performance. So we walk right past the stables back to the coach, and for people to have a chance to say hello to the horses as well that had partaken in the show. So it's all around a very, very comprehensive, busy 2.5 hours or so. Probably one of the highlights of the tour.
Amazing. I'd just go for the horses, to be honest. Okay. So yeah, it is a 4-course meal, ends with a delicious dessert. Yeah. And weren't the servers dressed as elves in November?
In this December show, the servers are dressed like elves, male, female, very fast service, because as you can well imagine, they serve I think they serve close to 1,000 people.
Oh,
And do that in an hour and a half to an hour and 3/4. So very well synchronized and organized, but super friendly service as well.
amazing. Yeah, they've been great to work with for years. Now Great Smoky Mountains. So this is the morning tour that we do the morning after we do the Dolly Parton Stampede.
Right.
So, it's America's most visited national park. It's open 24 hours a day, 24 hours a day, 365 days per year. Established in 1934, and it's 522,000 and some acres.
It's probably one of the nicest, and I have visited several parks in the United States. This is probably one of the most impressive parks in the United States. It encompasses, if I'm not mistaken, 5 states. And when you look at the picture where Jim, the motor coach driver of Coach Atlantic, who I frequently go down there with, who knows the area very well, where we are standing, that is the second last stop on the way up to the top. We go all the way up to 6,200 feet with the motor coach. So that in itself is a very interesting experience, because as we drive up from Pigeon Forge to the top of the Smoky Mountains, the step-on guide who joins us at the bottom of the park will talk to us about the different vegetation that we are encountering the higher we go. So we start off with relatively lush vegetation at the lower level. Then we work our way up higher and higher and higher. And as you can see in the pictures, when you get to the top of the Smokies, it's about 6,200 feet.
Oh,
It's a totally different vegetation from when you left Pigeon Forge. So it's a super interesting tour, because the step-on guides that we normally get are part of the park rangers, or they are retired park rangers, know a lot about wildlife, vegetation, but also the history of the hillbillies who settled in the Smoky Mountains. And many of them are of German descent, who originally settled there. So it's a combination of a half-day tour with several stops to take pictures. In the spring, of course, we do not have to worry about snow. In the fall, the last one we did last fall, there was snow on the top of the mountains. I mean, we're at 6,000 feet, but in the spring, that's not an issue. So we have several stops with beautiful lookouts and picture taking, lots of information, proper washroom stops. So even if you're going up to 6,000 feet, washrooms are still there. And just a very nice morning for people that enjoy scenery, because when you get to the top of the Smoky Mountains, you literally have the Appalachian Trail that crosses the Smoky Mountains. So people can walk from the state of Maine all the way down to Tennessee, and we see them with their backpacks on, actually walking the Appalachian Trail that, where we stop with the motor coach. So it's a very interesting tour with a lot of history and beautiful scenery. Another big highlight on this tour.
yeah. And then so afterwards we stop in Gatlinburg. It's kind of like a free time for them to have lunch. What is there in Gatlinburg for them to,
Gatlinburg is basically known as the home of moonshine. So there are quite a few moonshine tasting places, live music out in the street. It's a tourist destination, but in a mountainous environment. There are cable cars going to the top of the mountains. There are plenty of restaurants, shopping. So we normally, after the Smoky Mountains, we get back on the coach. We go down to Gatlinburg, which is about a 15-minute drive. And then we park the coach, and people have free time for about an hour and a half to explore. And like I say, the idea of the moonshine, which is kind of the beverage of the Smokies, there is the opportunity for tasting, but also for some shopping, lunch, and then we get back onto the coach.
Awesome. Okay, and then probably the number one reason is the Grand Ole Opry as to why people love the Nashville tour and just love Nashville in general.
Yeah, I mean, we are on this particular itinerary, we are going to be leaving from Gatlinburg and are going to Nashville. Nashville is obviously a combination of the Country Music Hall of Fame, the Grand Ole Opry. The Grand Ole Opry, for us, it's always a bit of a surprise because we don't really know the performers until relatively close to the day itself, because the Grand Ole Opry really is an opportunity for established country music singers and performers, but also up and coming performers to have that incredible privilege to step onto the stage at the Grand Ole Opry and perform. So we have seen all kinds of big names as we were there. The last one that we were at was Vince Gill.
Wow.
But you don't know exactly who could be there. You know, it could be
Yeah.
Dolly, or it could be someone who you've never heard of before. It's the whole idea about Nashville, of course, is to allow new and up and coming performers
Yeah.
to perform in a lot of the honky tonk bars that we have free time to go and explore on Broadway, Honky Tonk Row. But then to be invited to play on the Grand Ole Opry is an incredible experience. So when I take our groups there, it's not only the music we're going to hear, but it's the whole experience of actually walking into the Grand Ole Opry with the wooden floor. And it is a live broadcast on the radio. And they've been doing that for many, many years. So it's a live broadcast with live entertainment, and people that are lovers of country music. For them, this is probably one of the highlights, as well as the Country Music Hall of Fame is. But the Grand Ole Opry is probably one of the premier destinations in Nashville.
Yeah, definitely a must-do experience.
Yeah.
Not even if you're just going to Nashville, but I put that on my bucket list 100%.
No, it's great.
Yeah, so it was actually a simple radio broadcast in 1925, which is they're coming up their 100 year.
Yeah, it's quite something. And you know, with the pandemic, they had to kind of slow down a bit and reduce the amount of seating, but they're back in full operation. And for people that love country music, this is probably most likely on their bucket list, because it's probably, you know, the premier destination for country music.
Exactly. Okay. Now, you did mention Country Music Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So give us a little bit of a rundown on what people can expect in there.
Just about everything to do with country music. I mean, you can see in one of the pictures there, all the golden albums that were won. That's the Wall of Fame. It's a 3-story building. It's in the heart of Nashville. We have entrance included, of course, in our tour, and it really is a free time for people. It's a self-guided tour. And on some of my groups, people, you know, take longer than others because they have particular performers that they're very interested in.
Yeah.
There are permanent displays. There are seasonal displays that rotate around. So we don't always know who those are, but the basic museum is the history of country music. And it's, you know, everything to do. I mean, right down to Elvis Presley limousines and cars that are parked there. I mean, you name it, they've got it. So it's something that takes at least 2 to 2.5 hours to visit. And it's right smack downtown Nashville. Across the street from the Music Hall of Fame is a large park. And that is the Walk of Fame, where it's a bit like the Hollywood Walk of Fame, but
Okay.
this is the Country Music Walk of Fame, with all of the plaques of the performers over the many years, that you kind of walk through the park and visit and take pictures of all of the big music names that are on stones in the park.
Yeah. Awesome. I didn't know that. I didn't know that they had that there. And you made up a good point there. Everything that we've mentioned up until this point is included in the full price for the Nashville tour.
Yep.
The only thing that so far isn't included is the lunch in Gatlinburg, and that is on your own. So you got free time to shop and have lunch, but everything else is included.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we move on to Memphis and Graceland.
What can I say? I mean, there are still millions of Elvis Presley fans from all over the world that I encounter there. So we drive from Nashville to Memphis. It's not a long drive. It's about 3.5 hours, pretty countryside. And then we go to Graceland, we park the coach, and I escort the guests in. We get our tickets. We are invited into a small movie theater, which gives a little bit of the Elvis Presley life and the background. And then we are escorted onto courtesy buses or small vans that take us across the road to go to Graceland. And that's a self-guided tour. And of course, we have the time to walk through Graceland and literally walk through the house that Elvis Presley lived in. We also go through the outdoor area. And then, of course, we also have the cemetery, if I can call it that way, where Elvis is buried and family members. So that's kind of a very special place, very quiet, people taking pictures. And then we go back onto the coach and we go to the main building. And that's where they have an incredible collection of Elvis Presley memorabilia. And when I'm talking memorabilia, we're talking about probably the 25 different automobiles that he owned, his motorcycles, everything to do with, things and gadgets that Elvis Presley acquired in his life. It's like a museum, which takes a good another half hour to walk through. I mean, from his Rolls Royces to his Cadillacs to his Harley Davidsons, I mean, you name it, it's all in that museum. So the whole package is Elvis Presley / Graceland. There is a really cool, and I know, people always expect that, but there's a really cool gift shop with Elvis Presley paraphernalia and affordable stuff that is not price gouging whatsoever. So yeah, that's Graceland is on many people's bucket list because of Elvis Presley.
Yeah. And do they come with headsets whenever you get there? I thought I saw that in the pictures from November.
Yeah. When we go on the van or the courtesy coaches, if I can call them that, every person is provided with a headset, and it's a self-guided sound of all the rooms. So as soon as you walk from one room into the next room, the headset automatically adjusts itself. So you could be standing in the kitchen or in the living room or in the bedroom or his basement, and it automatically guides you all the way through. So there is a combination of sound on the headsets and lots of information on the walls that people can, read. Like if you want to see Elvis Presley's marriage certificate, it's there. The birth first child, it's all there. So it's a combination, but the sound is on your headset. That's correct.
Wow. Switches as you go through the rooms. That's nifty.
Yeah.
Goodness. Now I would say that this is probably not it's more so a place that's on everybody's bucket list. Lancaster, the Amish country.
Yes.
So this time we switched to 2 days. So we got 1 day in Lancaster, or 1 night, in Lancaster at the start of the tour. And then we've got about a day and a half at the end, which is what we've had in the past.
That's a phenomenal improvement on the itinerary because it gives us a bit more downtime. Lancaster is Amish country. It's somewhat similar, but much bigger. It's somewhat similar to Southern Ontario. St. Jacobs and all that in terms of Amish. This is a combination of Amish and Mennonite, but it's very much Amish, and it's on the outskirts of Lancaster. So our hotel is in Lancaster, you could say, but we're only about a 10-minute drive from Amish country. So in this tour, the visit to Kitchen Kettle Village is another highlight. It's not so much shopping when you think outlet mall, is very much shopping Amish. So there are beautiful stores with preserves and jams. We have many people coming out of the stores with cardboard boxes full of little jars of pickles and jams, etc. Of course, we have lots of space down in the coach. That's the beauty about being on a motor coach. You don't have to worry about checking things in for an airline because we just put stuff underneath in the coach. So people really enjoy shopping that way. There are opportunities at Kitchen Kettle Village. Frequently, I will go with some of the people on the the horse and buggies with the Amish guides, and we go right through the Amish farm countryside. Excuse me. And it's just a very pretty little village. They have outdoor entertainment. Believe it or not, there is a Christmas shop in there. So whether it's spring or fall or summer, there's always an opportunity, some shopping with Christmas ornaments, especially Amish ornaments. So Kitchen Kettle Village is great. Now, if I'm not mistaken, we also have a guided tour with a step on. And that is really interesting because this way, the guides we normally get are of Amish background themselves. They come onto the coach and they really take us deep into the Amish country. And we really learn a lot about their history. We go visit some of the farms. We go to one or two quilt shops that are run by Amish. So it's very much a combination of shopping at Kitchen Kettle Village, going onto a horse and buggy ride through the countryside on your own if you want to, which is optional. But then we have an included step-on guide on the motor coach who really shares with us the history of the Amish. And we get to experience it by going through these beautifully maintained farms.
And we've also got 2 included dinners in Lancaster. So one the first night and then one the second night. And then we will have a 3rd included dinner on the first night of Lancaster.
On the way. Yes.
Lots of good food to be had. I'm a little bit jealous that I'm not going because
people in Amish country, you don't want to be on a diet in a restaurant. Let me put it that way. It's large family style platter serving with encores and top ups and just beautifully home cooked food that you would expect on a Sunday night supper at home. So Amish food it's like I say, you don't want to be calorie counting when you're in Amish country.
And service with a smile. They're so great down there. They're just such people. They love having us there as much as we love being there and visiting.
Yeah, they are very hospitable. Very, very. It's a wonderful experience.
One question we get a lot from people is free time. Is there a lot of free time on the Nashville Lancaster tour?
Well, there is free time. I mean, everything from free time in downtown Nashville, free time, for instance, in Nashville, within walking distance of the Country Music Hall of Fame, you're only 2 or 3 city blocks from Broadway, which is Honky Tonk, which is where all the bars are with the live music. The reason they call them Honky Tonk, by the way, is these are all performers who are not paid by the establishment. So the honky tonk expression means there is a bucket next to the stage that people would make a contribution to, or the bucket is passed around as that particular performer is performing, and that's their form of income. So they are playing, without a pay by the establishment, but it's the that thanks them by leaving a contribution in the bucket, which is referred to down there as a honky tonk. So there's free time there. The free time, if you look at the hotel in Lancaster, it is adjacent to the Lancaster discount shopping. The mall is right next door with over 100 stores. So you just cross the parking lot. So even after dinner, because all these stores are open until 9 o'clock, I frequently see people after dinner. Some people go to their rooms, other people go across the parking lot and do some shopping. So yes, there is free time. Not so much in Memphis, because that's the day where we drive, check into the hotel, and then get on the coach to go to the restaurant downtown. And Memphis is not necessarily a town that lends itself to free time walking around downtown. And that's why our itinerary is relatively geared towards the hotel, the check-in, and the dinner in the evening at the Blue City Cafe, which, by the way, a phenomenal experience because that's live blues music as we have supper. So yes, there is free time throughout, even on our way back into we're going into Portland. Directly across the road from the hotel is the mall with, again, about 100 or 150. That's an indoor mall. So yes,
Yeah.
there is shopping and free time nicely built into this. It's not a hurried, stressed itinerary.
No, we worked really hard for this May one and even the Christmas one to make sure that we're
Yeah.
staying in hotels that are centrally located so that if you don't
Yeah.
have a group dinner that night or you want to go out and explore the city,
Yeah.
you're close enough to things that you're not having to get a cab, you're not having to, do a shuttle bus back and forth, if the hotel were to have one. So yeah, we just focused really hard on centralizing all of the hotels to make sure that we've got all kinds of options for people.
And the other thing I do want to add as well, the motor coach drivers of Coach Atlantic are very agreeable to make themselves available. So if the motor coach driver and I sit down and say, okay, let's map out the day tomorrow. And if we see that there's an opportunity for people maybe to go shopping, that they may not want to walk back to the hotel, I would make the motor coach available as a bit of a shuttle service back to the hotel. So that people they don't have to worry about taking a cab. As long as we stay within the allowable hours that the motor coach driver is allowed to drive, the motor coach is at our disposal. So it's really nice to be able to say, or if the weather is not cooperating, we might just say, you know what, why don't we drop you off, you go shopping, we'll be back in 2 hours and pick you up and take you back to the hotel. So that's a real privilege of having it incorporated into a Target tour because the motor coach is at our disposal and the drivers are very, very good that way to be flexible when it comes to that kind of a request.
Yeah, we've been very lucky with our drivers.
Yeah.
If you had to pick a favorite attraction of the whole tour, what would it be? Just out of curiosity.
For me personally?
Yeah.
Well, I've done it so many times, and every time I go back there, I mean, there are new things that I discover. So the highlight for me probably is Broadway in Nashville, because you never know what you're going to experience. So it's just visualize a street with, establishment after establishment, door after door after door is live country music. If you go to some of the places, it could be a 3-story building with 3 different types of music playing. So if you're a lover of country music, and I've become, I guess, a much more of a fan than I might have been in the past. Nashville certainly for me is a big highlight. I love going to Amish country because I'm just curious and interested in the history and the whole atmosphere that you find there. So for me, it would be a combination of music and then the experience, let's say, of Amish country. But another highlight for me, quite frankly, is just the time that we spend together on the coach. It'd be an opportunity to get to know the people. And what's really nice to see on these tours is, when you start off on the first day and it's early in the morning and people have, never met one another before, and they walk onto the coach and it's quiet and relatively dark still. And if you compare that with the last day after 12 days and you see people exchanging email addresses and sharing baby pictures, it goes to show you how much bonding takes place on the coach. And I think the coach driver and the tour director have a very important role to play to ensure that the overall atmosphere on board is enjoyable. Like I said earlier, we respect people's privacy. We do play games. We make frequent stops. I try to share with them points of interest. So I do quite a bit of research if there's a new destination we go to, so I can share with them, some of that information. And then on top of that, to have a step-on guide. We have a step-on guide in the Smoky Mountains. We have a step-on guide in Nashville. We have a step-on guide in Amish country. That really enhances the local knowledge that a tour director may not necessarily possess.
Exactly. And you're right. Tour directors and drivers, that team can make or break. And, you and Jim have done that tour, I don't even know how many times together. And we've just heard raves about how good of a team you guys are. So we're very lucky for drivers and tour directors.
Okay, well, that's nice.
Kathleen, you did have a question about indoor pools. Some of the hotels do. I know for a fact the Holiday Inn Express in Opryland does. So if you wanted to, do they have one there? I checked online and
They also, I believe, have one in the Fairfield in Lancaster.
Yep.
Is it Fairfield we stay, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we stay at the Fairfield, and then I'm pretty sure the Drury ones do. But Kathleen, if you want to send us an email at info@Target Tours, I can answer that for you tomorrow whenever I get back to the office.
Yeah, and the other thing I should mention as well is the vast majority of hotels we stay at also provide laundry facilities, which on a 12-day tour is important.
Yeah.
And our coin-operated laundry machines from, washers and dryers. And the nice thing as well on this itinerary, there is enough time from check-in to when you either have free time or when we get back on the coach, is to do and take advantage of the laundry facilities in the hotels as well.
Awesome. Okay, so I think that's pretty much answers any questions that we could have about the itinerary, unless someone has any. Let's get into the tips and tricks that we can let people know for booking the tour for Nashville, for packing. So what are some helpful tips in terms of packing for these tours, weather-wise? Should they pack in layers? Should they pack should they pack for one outfit a day, or kind of rotate their clothes if they can?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. You're right. It's a good one because, for instance, as I said earlier, when we go up into the Smoky Mountains at 6,000 feet, it may have been 18 or 20 degrees Celsius in Pigeon Forge, but it could be 10 degrees at the top of the mountain. So what I typically see people have umbrellas, just in case, you never know. They may have jackets that might have a liner, where if they really need to, they have a warmer jacket or coat to wear. I have seen, people sometimes bring small blankets onto the coach. It depends on where you sit sometimes. People just want to get cozy and have a small blanket. Footwear, we don't really go anywhere where it's, rough walking, and if I can call it that. But, if we step off the coach in the Smoky Mountains, or if we are on the Amish tour and we get off the coach and we go visit a farm or a gift shop at a farm, we're not talking high heels here, right? I mean, we're talking comfortable shoes, whether it's sneakers or comfortable walking shoes. In terms of other comfort items, I mean, people, have basically, they know what they want themselves in. The temperatures as we work our way south in the middle of May, I think people can pretty well expect it to be very comfortable. It will get relatively warm down in Nashville. We're probably going to be in the mid-20s at least in May in Nashville. Whereas in the fall, when we were there last year, we had a few days where it was 2-3 degrees Celsius, because that can happen. You never really know in Tennessee. In the spring, to be relatively comfortable. So bring clothes that, you probably know more than I do in terms of the luggage allowance, but generally speaking, it's like one suitcase, I guess, per person.
Yeah.
And people have pretty well always managed to put in the suitcases, whatever they require. So exactly. I think people just need to be comfortable that they have everything from sunscreen, lotion. The other thing I should mention is very important to drink a lot of water throughout the day, especially when they're on the coach, and just don't get dehydrated. When we stop, I normally encourage people to take a bit of extra time. If we're at a service stop on one of the freeways or the highways down in the States, I recommend people, stretch your legs a bit, get a little bit of exercise, because not everyone is used to sitting on the coach. And generally speaking, when we drive, we discourage people from walking up and down the aisle. you have to be a little careful from a safety point of view. And of course, we do have a washroom in the back of the coach, so that's always accessible. But when
Yeah.
we get stops, and that's why the stops are planned in such a way that it's never more than about an hour and a half to 2 hours between stops. But when we do stop, they're long enough for people to use the washroom facilities, grab a snack or a bite to eat if it's lunchtime, but also, do some exercising.
Exactly. Stretch the legs a little bit because those
Yep.
days can be long sometimes. Another question: is there any like local customs or kind of etiquette that people should follow whenever they're down in the States, down in Nashville?
Um,
Kind of a different question, but
no, but generally speaking, it's okay. I mean, one thing that people should recognize is the further south that we go in the United States, it gets a little bit more conservative, if I can put it that way. So cultures do change as further south that you go. So people in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, are different from the people in Nashville, Tennessee. So it's a very relaxed, down to earth kind of atmosphere in the southern parts of the United States. But overall, I don't think we have to really worry too much. What I can say is, as soon as it's a Canadian motor coach, people love it when they see Canadians come down there. They end up chit-chatting with the people in the restaurant and the servers and wherever we go. So as a Canadian motor coach company, we are very nicely received, whether it's in the hotels or the restaurants that we go to as a group. We have a pretty good reputation as travelers, that we are polite and respectful of their customs and all that. So
yeah.
it's not have a Canadian license plate on the motor coach, if I can put it that way.
Awesome. I mean, that's really, unless you can think of anything else, that's all the questions I have. Were there any other questions from the audience? Anyone have any pressing questions? I will say that we are still waiting to guarantee this tour. We need 6 more seats before we can guarantee. So if you are thinking about this tour or you're waiting to see if it guarantees, don't wait to book. Now is the time to do it. And we're in the office tomorrow, Caitlin and myself. So if you want to call in, have any questions before, you book now, or if you want to book tomorrow, by all means, give us a call at the office and we'll be more than happy. Give it a couple minutes, see if anyone has any questions that they want to send in. If you have a question right now, always you can send us an email or give us a call, and we can get whatever information you need.
Good. Well, I hope it was helpful.
Yes, it was great. Thank you so much, Walter. This was awesome. I think it's nice for people to get to hear from the expert on what to expect and what's included.
Well, I look forward to meeting everyone on the coach, and thanks for the invite.
Thanks, Walter. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.